So glad to have you along once again. We are joined, as always, by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a James Beard Award nominee. The group includes Vermilion in Old Town, Eat Bar in Arlington. What's on tap this week?
So this week we have a collaboration beer. Of course, collaboration beers are big in craft beer, and they have been for some time. Our upcoming brewery, Blue Jacket, has been going ballistic with collaboration beers. Soon enough, we're actually taking the show on the road, and my brewmaster and I are going over to Belgium to brew with De La Seine in Brussels and De Strusa in West Flanders.
Need an assistant?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Volunteer.
Bring the radio show over.
Yeah.
We've done over 10 collaborations in anticipation of our opening next spring down by National Stadium in DC. But this is something that's been going on for some time now, and in many ways, this kind of overseas collaboration that we're embarking upon was inspired by the work of Brasserie St-Feuillien and Green Flash Brewing Company. They've done now 2 collaborations. This is the second, called Friendship Beer, number 2. But this started back in 2009. Dominique Friart is the current owner of St-Feuillien Brewery, which is south of Brussels in Wallonia, French-speaking south of Belgium. And she came over. I actually remember she stopped in here, and we hung out for quite some time for an American trip in 2009 to just talk about her brands. They make wonderful Belgian-style beers, of course. And she ended up in San Diego and was hanging out with the Green Flash people, and really loved what they did, and loved checking out how they worked and how different it was. And then they kind of put their heads together and said, let's brew a beer. And so later on, Chuck Silva, the head brewmaster at Green Flash, traveled to St-Feuillien, and they came up with a beer together called Bière de l'Amitié, or French for Friendship Beer, and this was back in 2010. A wonderful beer, a strong blonde, brewed with some rye and wheat, and dry hopped with Amarillo hops from the Pacific Northwest. That was kind of Green Flash's thing that they kind of donated into that mix, and it was wonderful. Very hard to find, though. They didn't brew a lot of it. So this time around, they came over to Green Flash, which is a much bigger system, especially because they just expanded. And I don't know if you've noticed, but Green Flash beer has been much more readily available, both on draft but in bottles, all throughout our region, in Northern Virginia as well as in D.C. And so they were able to make much more of this time, and it's a great thing because this beer is fantastic. And so what they decided to do was to brew a farmhouse ale of sorts, a Saison, brewed with a Saison yeast, which gives you a kind of mild fruit, but lots of peppery and grassy notes through fermentation in the nose. But rather than brew it in the pale style, as you'd expect from like Saison DuPont or something, they decided to give it some malty heft and make it a kind of black Saison. Just like with Bière de l'Amitié, this is brewed with a secret blend of spices as well. Everything's well integrated. It's wonderful. It almost is kind of like an oatmeal stout in the malt character in the body. Oatmeal stouts tend to be not quite as dry and roasty as most stouts because the addition of oats gives you some silky sweetness. So I get a little bit of that here, and it's just a really well balanced beer that's really cool.
All right.
There's hints of smoke. Yeah. Still nice and dry, peppery, roasty, finish earthy. Definitely has this kind of floral, yeasty quality of a Belgian beer, but much more of the roasted character as well. It's not a heavy hitter. It's around 6% alcohol, so it's not gonna knock you out. And definitely more of like an American porter or stout quality with that Saison yeast fermentation.
And
spice.
I can just see sitting in a nice armchair with a fire going and sipping this and just being in total bliss. We've talked about this over the months, but if it's not the coolest trend in craft brewing, it's got to be one of the coolest trends, and that's these collaborations.
It's cool.
They're knocking it out of the park. It seems in most cases. I haven't tried everything, but
yeah, I mean they're really great. I mean, think about it like, what I kind of think is that if one brewery doesn't want to release a beer that they don't absolutely love, imagine when 2 breweries are putting their names behind it. It's like doubly important that the beer is amazing, and it kind of keeps it from being just like a marketing tool or a commercialized thing. And it's also great, too, because there is, having done these now on many occasions with Megan Parisi, the brewmaster for Blue Jacket, you know, there is such an amazing interplay. And no matter how much people know about brewing, they don't know, they'll never know it all. And there's always something somebody knows you don't know, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So there's this great interplay of ideas, great shop talk, finding out like great prices on certain grains or certain cool new hop varietals and things like that. So it's a fun thing to do for everybody involved.
And if everyone just hid behind the furnace in the basement brewing their beer, it would never evolve.
Yeah,
as quickly or quality-wise, would it? I mean,
no, it wouldn't, and it also wouldn't give you what you're looking for, which is this kind of the newness of craft beer, which is cool. We love to have beers that we can count on and go back to, our favorites that we always know we can find. But it's also fun to mix in something you've never had before. And luckily, with this continued boom of craft brewing and collaboration and occasional releases, there just seems to be something new on the shelves daily.
You mentioned Blue Jacket and the collaborations you're doing. Give us a quick update on where we are with Blue Jacket and how many collaborations are you working on and have worked on?
I think we've done roughly 12 or 10 or 12, and we have more on the docket. You know, my goal is by the time we open, which should be in spring of 2013, to have nearly 20 different beers brewed through collaborations, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and so we've been very busy doing that. You know, Snallygaster, we released a couple of collaborations we did recently with Oxbow Brewing up in Maine, Mad Fox in Northern Virginia, which makes amazing beers. Like I said, we've got the Belgium collaborations coming up. And then a couple other cool ones coming up. We brewed a beer with Dogfish Head at the pub in Rehoboth.
Oh, wow.
And then one with Peekskill Brewing Company out of New York State, Peekskill, New York, which is lesser known in some circles, but amazing new place. Jeff O'Neill, who used to be the brewmaster at Ithaca Brewing Company, which famously makes an amazing IPA called Flower Power, moved over and took over Peekskill. So it's a beer that we brewed with Peekskill and Allagash together. That'll be coming out as well. So there's lots of fun things happening.
Now, you don't need to name names, but have you had anyone who you've called up and said, hey, I love your beer, let's get together, and they go, not really interested?
No, thankfully no.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be kind of surprised, because that doesn't seem to be the mindset of craft brewers.
No, I will say the one thing to keep in mind, though, about collaborations is as people expand, as there seems to be not enough beer, you know, and with these, and as you know, you get bigger, it's a big-time business decision, lots of investment. The people are getting so much better about planning. And so, you know, you're planning out months and months in advance your brew schedule, which is based on the ingredients coming in and things like that. So it's not like I can just call up a brewery and say, hey, let's do a collaboration tomorrow. And they're like, sure, come on in. You know, there is definitely a planning period. And then you have to figure it out. There's a pretty major American craft brewer that I love dearly and I know very well that when we spoke early on, they were like, absolutely, you're on the very, very, very short list of people we want to do stuff with, but we're going to have to get back to you just because we're literally, our vessels are booked out for another 9 months. So, you know, that's really the only kind of thing that's held us up at all in some capacities. And then there's some brewers that are just like, we just don't have the space. In fact, that's where the Allagash thing in some ways came from. We started talking to Allagash, and then they were like basically like we don't have enough beer. We can't even make enough beer that we need right now. I don't know how we could possibly change up the schedule, but we should do something together with another brewer. And then this eventually led to the Peekskill thing. Okay.
And I mean, there's so many variables. You're at the mercy of what hops are available. And things
exactly.
like that. You know, and it's good I don't venture a guess. What would you pair this with?
This is something that's really amazing. I don't know why I've been kind of thinking about it since I tasted it, but I've been really into lamb and lamb chops recently. Just like I can't get enough of it. So especially I love lamb curries, lamb vindaloo, different kinds of Indian lamb, and it's like you said, it's inviting that pop of like a kind of earthy spice in the nose, just like anise and ginger. Then that coupled with this kind of fruity quality, a touch of tartness, and an oily acidity, plus the roasted peppery notes, just makes me think that any kind of Indian lamb preparation would just be outstanding with this.
Tandoori chicken,
anything, and then chicken. It could be chicken too, exactly, because it's not too big. So, or anything, even vegetarian. And that's something like I love meat. I'm an omnivore, you know. But when it comes to veggie food, which I also do enjoy, Indian veggie food's the best because I mean the sauces are so important that you don't necessarily need as much of the meat. But that said, yeah, lamb, chicken, Indian spice I think would just go great with this.
And great for just sipping too, as we mentioned
by the fire.
Got a question for Greg? The email is beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Greg, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Everyone do always please drink responsibly. And be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.